David, in your role as the Senior VP of International Operations for DDI, you will have seen many of the challenges that organizations face around the world regarding talent management. What are some of the common themes?
Well, I think, Michael, over the last, I think, probably 6 months or so, based on my travels around the world, I've not seen the whole issue of talent management, human capital, as critically recognised particularly by senior line leaders,
right,
as important for the future. I think there's a number of things that are playing out that are influencing that. And the best word that I would use to describe it right now is fear. And it's fear about a couple of different things. One, of course, we're coming out of clearly a very difficult financial time. And there are a number of signs that things are very much on the improve. And that's obviously varies by market. But generally, organisations are starting to see the markets open up again, the opportunities start to open up again. One of the fears that senior leaders tend to have is around retention. And it's obviously with the opening up of the economies, that's going to represent new opportunities, particularly for the highest potential talent and most talented people in their business. So there is a real palpable fear about being able to keep those individuals, retain them, keep them in the business, keep them engaged. That's certainly one thing. The other factor that seems to be playing out on the fear side is a concern about, do I have the right people that are going to take my organisation into the future? If you think about what's happened over the last 12 to 24 months, a lot of organisations have gone through the process of downsizing the organisation in order to retain and control their cost. Now, in doing so, I think many organisations have removed individuals out of their business that were probably better suited for a high growth environment,
right, and
have tried to protect those individuals in the business who are able to manage in more of a conservative, cost-conscious, more of a protection mode. So I've got a lot of CEOs, MDs who are talking to me at the moment around, do I have the right people, not so much for the business environment that was, but the business environment that will be. Individuals who are going to drive innovation, drive growth, versus just drive protection of bottom line results. So that's one of the key themes I'm starting to see around the world. But from your perspective, Michael, in Turkey, I know you've been exposed here in the Turkish market for some time. How do you see this issue playing out here in Turkey?
Yeah, there are some similar themes in Turkey, and Turkey certainly hasn't been immune to the rigours of the global economic crisis that we've all felt. I think there are a few things about Turkey which are relatively unique. In Turkey, last year we dipped by around, the GDP fell by around 5%. And that had quite an impact on organisations. People started to cut middle managers. They had to get rid of some key staff in order to control costs. But Turkey's rebounding very quickly. So unlike some of the more mature economies like the UK or even the US, in Turkey in 2010 we're expecting a GDP growth of around 6%, 2011 and even higher GDP growth. And that combines with a somewhat different population to many of the economies that we see around Europe. In Turkey we have a very young population. They're very dynamic, they're very innovative, they're very adaptable. And it's not the only recession that we've seen in Turkey over the last 10 years. We had a recession in 2001, we had a recession in 2004, and the reaction of the population was very much around adapting and being innovative, which is it holds us in good stead for the future. But you're right in terms of the challenges that the growth opportunities put to organisations, because our young people, and who are dynamic young people, we've got a lot of young people, but we also have a shortage of suitably qualified young people. And they're going to be in so much demand when the economy starts to grow again. And that does cause us an issue.
So many similarities, it would seem, between general conditions from a talent management perspective, so you get retention, and this whole question mark around the rapid acceleration of that new generation of leaders. It sounds very similar to me, in fact, to what I'm observing in both China and India right at the moment. Obviously significant growth, very young populations of inexperienced individual contributors who in reality will become the leaders of the future. I often refer to that as the kind of the rapid arrival of the unprepared.
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
So really, organisations in those marketplaces, and it sounds like some similarities here in Turkey, are focused on the rapid acceleration of experience of that next generation of leaders, because we know you can certainly increase an individual's knowledge, you can increase their competence. The biggest challenge seems to be rapidly growing experience. So that seems to be, that's a major trend right now in talent management in markets around the world, is how do we rapidly accelerate the experience of this unprepared population of leaders around the world. And I think it would seem, again, some similarities to Turkey, and of course being here at the conference, talking to a number of organisations here. One of the driving themes seems to be around ensuring that the talent management strategies that have been put in place are directly linked to the business priorities. That seems to be an absolute imperative.
Well, that rings a bell in Turkey, because the leaders of organisations in Turkey, like around the world, I was reading an article from the Harvard Business Review only a couple of weeks ago, which said that there's not a connection between the strategic objectives or the critical business issues that organisation faces and the identification and the development of talent. That our VPs and our senior leaders recognise that they have to identify and develop the talent, but they're not quite sure what to do. They're not quite sure how to identify them, they're not quite sure how to develop them, but they know it has to be done.
There's absolutely a divide at the moment between intent and action. The intent is to go about aggressively developing talent, putting in place effective talent management strategies. But to your point, both HR and, more importantly, senior leaders aren't quite sure where to go on the action perspective. What they know is it has to be linked to the business. And what they also know is it has to deliver results, because they can't afford not to have the right people in place. If they do, if they fail to do that, they know they risk their ability to execute against their business strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in conclusion, David, what would be your one piece of advice to a senior leader in an organisation in Turkey who was talking to us about talent management?
Well, my advice to a senior leader would be to demand from their HR, their talent management professionals in their organisations, that those individuals can create a direct linkage between what they're doing in the HR space and what the business priorities are. That would be my number one piece of advice.
Thank you, David. That would be a great piece of advice. Thanks very much. Thank you.